G'day everyone, and welcome again to this Hidden Gems lockdown webinar special. I'm actually in isolation, day 8, 2 negative tests, but about to go stir crazy. So what's of interest this week? I reckon it's the online broking space. There seems to be more and more competitors looking at the Australian market, and there's lots of moving parts in the background. Now, if you think about the online space, you've got CommSec at $20. They've been around forever. Self-Wealth are now at $10. Superhero coming in apparently at $5, which makes it all seem like a race to the bottom, particularly if Robinhood and eToro enter the market with this free brokerage model. Now, remember, if you're excited by the prospect of free brokerage, remember the Silicon Valley saying, if it's free, you're not the client, you're the product. Now, what is of interest is that the scramble at the back end. You can effectively plug and play online broking technology into any website these days. Of course, you have to be licensed. So for someone like Self-Wealth, they clear and settle via open markets, who is their provider, as do many online brokers. Self-Wealth effectively bolt on open markets technology to enable execution, clearing and settlement, which is ironic because Self-Wealth have got a market cap of around $100 million, even though they don't own their execution technology. They make a small margin on millions of trades after paying open markets, and open markets pays the ASX. Where they really make the market, their money is on the haircut on your cash held on deposit with them. Now, open markets was due to IPO recently, but was pulled. That IPO was pulled because Superhero, who were one of their clients, jumped ship to one of the new competitors, which is the Magellan-backed FinClear, who provide exactly the same services as open markets. Now, FinClear, which is probably going to list in the next 12 months, also recently bought Pershings. Now, if you don't know Pershings were the clearinghouse for the likes of Shaw and Ords. Now, for brokers, outsourcing this functionality is really important because it saves them about $5 million in capital that will be required to lodge at the ASX if they cleared themselves. The irony is that FinClear actually got paid by the owners of Pershings. So BNY Mellon, which owns Pershings, paid FinClear, by all reports, around $60 million to take on Pershings. And that's because Pershings was losing around $15 million each year for the last couple of years. Now, the point of all this is that online brokers are heavily reliant on their clearing and technology partners and the contracts they negotiate with the likes of open markets and or FinClear. So if they can't make big money on brokerage, they will have to innovate. So online brokers will look to sell their flow or lend out their stock for short selling, which is kind of what Robinhood does in the US, because ultimately online broker works off really small margins. So what's all this mean for the consumer? I reckon it means that online brokers ultimately have no control over the key driver of their revenue, which is not a great position to be in. So unless they innovate by turning the client into the product, then online brokerage really can't get much cheaper than it is at the moment. Okay, so remember to ask questions and we'll go from there. First up, we have Elixinol Wellness, ASX code EXL, market cap of around $33 million, 1 year return of minus 29%. The company is a global leader in the hemp industry, innovating, marketing and selling hemp-derived cosmetic and food products. We have with us the CEO and Executive Director, Oliver Horn. Over to you. Thanks, Oliver.
Great. Thanks for having me, Tim. If we can jump 2 steps ahead. Yeah, one more. Thank you. We are a global wellness company, and our vision is to create a healthier, happy everyday life through the power of hemp and plant-based products. And our purpose, very simply, is changing lives very naturally. And we produce CBD products, hemp-derived CBD products, skincare products, and hemp foods here in Australia. We have been in the hemp scene and CBD for a very long time, over 2 decades, and pride ourselves as being a pioneer in that space. Next slide, please. And why do we embrace hemp so much? Why is the heartland of our business hemp? Hemp is a wonderful plant. Every single part of the hemp plant can be used. It's fast growing, matures in 90 days, has numerous growing cycles. It's a perfect carbon capture, captures approximately 10 times more CO2 than pine trees, who take, by the way, 20 years to mature. It's extremely sustainable and very drought pest resistant. That means it requires very little water. It's a superfood, a source of CBD that we produce, and it's been legalized as a food here in Australia only since 2017. So it's a real true powerhouse, extremely sustainable, and every part can be used in either nutraceuticals or food products. Next slide. We are a pioneer, as I mentioned before, and we have a truly global footprint. Having been in the business of CBD and hemp for over 20 years, we've established very early on our presence across the world. Americas arguably being our biggest part of the business, and what you see here is the 2020 revenue numbers. Over half of our revenues coming out of the Americas, where we have a team and production, sales, marketing, and distribution. About a third of our revenue comes from hemp foods here in Australia, a very established brand, the #1 hemp foods brand in Australia, and the rest is really made up of a global footprint of direct entities and partners across all parts of the world. Next slide. Only recently did we rename ourselves from Elixinol Global to Elixinol Wellness, and it's really a symbolic step in our rejuvenation. Over the course of the year and a half, and certainly since I joined in April, we really transitioned our business into a consumer goods wellness business that is a branded goods business focusing on high margin channels. Previously, we provided bulk services, private label services, and now we're really marking the transition into a consumer products business. And it's a business that strives to make a positive contribution to people's health, wellness, and the planet through the power of hemp. Next slide. This gives you a good snapshot of our financial achievements throughout the year 2020. And although revenues declined for a number of reasons, partly it was a very deliberate strategy. And you can see on the left-hand side, the gray areas are really our bulk and private label business. We exited this kind of business because frankly, we are striving to become profitable, and those businesses, those parts of the business were not margin accretive to us. So we exited that part of the business and really focusing now our business on global e-commerce, retail business through our strong consumer brands. And throughout the last year in 2020, we reduced our annualized cost by over 45%. And on the back of our progress in rejuvenating the business, we had an extremely successful capital raise that left us with, at the end of the year, nearly $28 million of cash in the bank, and barely any debt or hardly any debt. On the right-hand side here, you see the development on our EBITDA position, and you can see how we were turning the business around by really, taking the cost out and focusing on a much leaner cost base, to drive revenue growth and profitable channels. Next slide. The last quarterly results that we published were obviously the March quarter. And look, unfortunately, COVID, particularly in our European and our US businesses, given us significant challenges. And we've seen that business recover and had a monthly growth profile, which you can see there, month over month, our growth, starting to materialize again as we came out of the COVID period. Very importantly, we exited the quarter with a very strong margin accretion story and improvement. And you see on the bottom there how our group margin is now tracking at the 58% mark. I do believe there's upside to be had. And that's certainly the highest margin that we have been achieving over the recent 5 quarters, and really testament to us focusing on consumer product with strong IP, marketing our products in profitable channels. We've continued to tightly our cost control measures. Our cost is now in the quarter 52% down, versus prior year in the same quarter 11% down versus the previous Q4 quarter. And we continue on our substantial cost out and reduction and efficiency program. At the same time, what we are really excited about is we becoming a digital first company. And 36% of our group revenues in the quarter were already derived by high margin e-commerce channel revenues. And certainly that is something that we continue to be driving. We are invested heavily into new e-commerce capability, particularly in the US, which is driving great results. Next slide. What we are extremely proud of as a first entrant and pioneer in the industry, and these are some brand health figures from the US. comparing Elixinol against Charlotte's Web, arguably the biggest brand and market leader. And you can see there that our repurchase intention and overall satisfaction for Elixinol is continuously improving and now benchmark really with the leaders in the category. In terms of our product of effectiveness and packaging and pricing appeal, we are ranking consistently in the top 20. Now, top 20 might not sound too exciting, but keep in mind that there's about 3,000 brands in the US, and it's a very cluttered space. And we're taking a leadership position here, largely attributed to our quality products that are really highly efficacious. Next slide. Our marketing capability is constantly growing, and this is a next demonstration on how we market and bring ourselves to the consumer. We're positioning ourselves as a natural food brand with Elixinol, a bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's all about wellness. It's all about nature, bringing you the best, to drive, the best personal you and helping you on your wellness journey. Next slide. Our innovation capability is second to none, I would argue. Throughout the year, we've innovated across all business units, whether it's Hemp Foods Australia here, launching a new gold protein range to really drive the protein category into a new dimension of quality and efficacy. But also in our CBD space, we launched last year a new skincare range based on CBD and various new product formats across the entire global markets. And one thing to point out is that only in April last year, we relaunched our entire range, our entire Elixinol branded product range with a really fresh new packaging appeal that you see on the left-hand side, really talking to those consumers who are not only looking for CBD products, but nutraceutical products. And that's a big differentiator for us. We are actually creating products that are not only having CBD, but they also have vitamins, minerals, and other supplements to really create efficacious and highly effective product formulations. Next slide. As I mentioned before, digital is a huge focus for us, helps us a large part to drive our margin improvements. And here's a comparison against our US Hemp Foods Australia, here in Australia business, and the European business. And across all regions, we're seeing matrix really, and numbers improving very, very significantly with revenue growth in the high double digits, as we're becoming more and more sophisticated and reaching more and more consumers through our digital presence. We're enjoying a very high conversion rate in the US. It's actually tracking over 8% now, which is extraordinary, really, in the e-commerce space, and we're very proud of that. Next slide. The outlook for the CBD market in particular is very positive. Consumers are only just at the beginning of the CBD journey, and the forecast is really for the US CBD market to grow about 26% CAGR over the next years and 34% in the European market. Although regulation is quickly shifting and that creates some instability and a bit of confusion in the market, the trend certainly is through positive regulation, regulatory change, as the World Health Organization and the United Nations declared CBD as safe and downsscheduled it to be not a narcotic anymore. And this trend certainly is going to give us tailwinds, as regulation changes in all global market to embrace CBD for all consumers. Next slide. I do like to spend a moment as well to acknowledge the recent announcement from this week that we're not closing the Canacare transaction. Just a reminder, this was a transaction where we signed an SPA on the 15th of March to acquire Germany's biggest CBD brand or retail CBD brand. We were due to pay an upfront consideration of 9 million euros and a script-based earnout of up to 15 million euros. But our closing due diligence over the last couple of weeks really showed a significant shift in market dynamic and an increased investment requirement that exceeded our risk appetite. And based on these dynamic changes, we entered into a mutual termination agreement with the sellers, and exited from that transaction. That really leaves us now with approximately $5.5 million of cash that otherwise would have been spent on the upfront consideration, integration work and working capital for this business, which we are now using to invest into our biggest markets, the US and into Australia. Next slide. I guess what's next, our short-term focus really certainly for the next 6 months is to continue our business transformation globally. That means in the US, we have a new leaner leadership team, much leaner cost. We're going to pursue a capital light model even more aggressively, Here in Australia, we're going to be investing against the hemp food segment. It's a growing category, and Hemp Foods Australia is doing extremely well, while we continue to invest into our digital capability and improving our margin through cost control, that we continuously optimizing our base on which we operate. Last slide, please. So really, in summary, over the last year and a half, we've really transformed our business to what you see now, a new Elixinol Wellness, a consumer products business, firmly anchored in the wellness space. We are having strong brands which are getting stronger in all global markets. It's a continued business transformation journey, which is showing great progress and results, with a digital strategy on its core, in its heartland, to drive our profitability, and in a very strong financial position. At the end of the quarter in March, we had a strong balance sheet with over $23 million cash and virtually debt-free. So it's a really, we are excited about the future, the work that we have done, but it's only just the start. Thank you.
Thanks, Oliver. $23 million worth of cash on a market cap of only 33 million. What is the plan with that? What is the plan for that cash?
Yeah, look, at the moment, our biggest markets are the US and the Australian market. And certainly we're going to be investing in driving the growth that we are seeing materializing out of those. And we're also looking for acquisition opportunities. Canacare not coming off Germany gives us a bit of room to explore. And we stated publicly that we're looking for M&A activity, particularly in the US, to really increase our scale and drive profitability really quickly in the CBD space or an adjacent space. So that's what we are really excited about using that cash now for.
And where do you actually manufacture? Is it all the products produced in Australia?
Hemp Foods Australia products are largely produced in Australia, yes, absolutely. And then our US products produced in the US, European products are all produced in Europe. They have to be for regulatory reasons, and so it's all in-market production, but it's largely outsourced in Europe. Here in Australia, we have our own production as well as in the US. And
the Canna Health acquisition that you considered, what's that telling us about the German market in terms of competition?
Look, particularly over the course of April, May, we saw some enormous transactions in that market. And one of them, for example, was a Sanity Group, which raised 35 million euros in a capital funding there, and is really aggressively moving into retail space. They're already a digital online lead brand. There was Curaleaf having a massive transaction in that market as well. So I think everybody's now seeing that Germany is a key growth market, and massive investment is coming into that market. And that will create increased competition and a higher cost to play. And simply, the fact that we are currently not profitable, striving to be profitable, our risk appetite, to enter a market that is increasingly getting hot, it's just not there when we have a good core business that we can drive growth from.
And the ultimate target market then is that the US?
Yeah, we have to win in the US and Australia. Those are absolute our priorities. We have a leadership position in those markets. We have a good team there. We have good products there. And really what we are focusing on getting our core engines humming. And that gives us then a bit of freedom to play. That's right.
And is the focus now, you've rebranded, is the focus kind of on creating a brand? Because if I thought of something in the hemp space, I can't name a brand. Is that the real value in terms of creating a brand as well as a product?
I absolutely believe. I think we have still a way to go, particularly here in Australia. We're actually known as Hemp Foods Australia, which is our manufacturing entity, and not as a consumer brand. Our consumer brand is actually Essential Hemp. And I would argue that we have an opportunity here, particularly in the next 12 months, to really get a stronger branding. A lot of the brands are retail only brands. So Woolworths has their own brands, Coles has their brand, and there is no strong leadership position at this stage. So I do believe absolutely consumers will relate to those natural plant-based food brands. And that's something that we will be investing against, yes.
Great, Oliver. That's all we have time for. Have a nice weekend. Love to get you back on again.
Tim, thank you very much, and enjoy the last 7 days of lockdown as much as you can.
Thank you. Next up, we have Wide Open Agriculture. We welcome them back. ASX code WOA, market cap around 87 million. 1 year return of up 97%. We have with us the Managing Director, Ben Cole. The company is Australia's leading regenerative food and agricultural company. Ben, welcome back. Over to you, mate.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks very much. To follow up from Tim's introduction, we are a regenerative food and agriculture company, the only listed regenerative food and agriculture company.
Ben, just excuse me, just watch your sound if you don't mind. You might It's just to
Okay.
get some. That's better.
How's that, mate? Yeah, right.
That's better.
Super. All right, raise your hand if that happens again. So we're firmly in the regenerative category, and that's right smack bam in the fastest growing sector of food, which is health and wellness. We've all been, and Tim directly right now has been sort of impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, and that's really brought a lot of awareness to not only how the food is being produced, so healthy farms, but also the nutrition levels of that food. And that's exactly where regenerative food and farming sits. So the business covers three components. We call it our trilogy strategy. We have our food brand, Dirty Clean Food, our oat milk, and our Lupin business as well. I'll talk on this slide about Dirty Clean Food. We've seen now 7 quarters of sustained growth, really looking positive for the upcoming quarter on that double-digit sort of growth trajectory. What excites us also is our digital strategy is really starting to bring a lot of the proportion of revenue. It's about at 40% now. We've seen our digital customers grow by about double over this last financial year. We're seeing really strong retention of online customers, and also we're seeing the average spend increase as well. So we like that part of the business, but we also like our retail category as well. That's grown really, really well quarter on quarter, as has food service as well. So the multi-channel components of Dirty Clean Food are really exciting to us. We're also, I really suggest you to have a look at our website. It's just dirtycleanfood.com.au. You can see the proposition has really expanded. We are now really taking a farmer's market to your door. And just to note, all of our sales are currently only in West Australia. I'll talk more about oat milk and Lupin as the slides go, but I'll just get the next slide, please. The main thing that I think's happened over the last couple of quarters is our ability to attract some really strong interest from institutional investors. Those institutional investors know the plant-based sector really well, and they know impact investment really well as too. And they're really the two tailwinds that wide open agriculture is sort of sailing behind. Alongside that, we still have a very loyal top ownership, shareholder ownership, who are really also committed to the purpose and vision of the business. Next slide, thanks. So I'm sure you've all had conversations either with your kids or with your own husband and wife or wife, the reduction of animal protein in your diet. Obviously, as a regenerative company, we do provide animal protein products as well. We believe they will continue to be a major part of people's diets, but there's no doubt they should reduce. We agree. If you're going to eat meat, you should only eat the best or the regenerative meat, and that's ours. But it's really the plant-based category where we're seeing not only merger and acquisitions from some of the largest meat companies like JBS and Tyson's in the world, but rapidly increasing consumer demand. And those investment tailwinds are absolutely as strong as they've been for any sector. It's a real stage of change here in the technology around alternative proteins or plant-based proteins. And next slide. And so we look at the market and compare ourselves to the best, as you should. And we look at how Beyond Burger and Impossible have really positioned their technology all the way through a food brand. And you'll see that's how we intend, as our two-pronged strategy with Lupin, to bring a dirty, clean food product using our Lupin technology in our own consumer-based product. Oatly has been incredible in its IPO. I think seeking close to $1 billion, ended up with $1.4 billion. I think it really shows how the oat milk market, people can see just how much market it's going to take from dairy, soy and almond. And then Burcon's a company that we like to sort of see ourselves as comparable to, and that it's got really nice clean tech in the pea and canola category, but still shows how the market can see how when you move to commerciality and offtake agreements, there's some real revenue potential there. Next slide, thanks. So what our technology really encompasses is around the Australian sweet lupin, and our technology's gone from lab scale to pilot scale now into product development. So we've really bridged what is a really key challenge in any technology, taking it out of the lab and into food and into people's mouths. So our most recent announcement really showed how we've made an early stage burger. We mixed it in our oat milk and it became offered a very creamy, like dairy-like sort of mouthfeel. And also we made a great noodle and a yogurt as well. So really all of those 4 categories are open to us for further product development. Internally, we're working very hard on our oat milk with a lupin addition, because that would be a really exciting change in that we would offer an oat milk with similar protein levels to dairy. It's the one question around the nutritional value of oat milk. And at this stage, it looks like we might have a really good solution to that. So I'll go to the next slide. So we know that the markets and consumers are demanding these, but for us, where we see the real comparative advantage is West Australia has almost a sort of monopoly over the growth of Australian sweet lupin here in Australia. And Australia grows 60% of the world's production. So we know that we're very good at growing it. We have adequate supply. We're a regenerative company, so we look for crops that make sure they protect soil health, they eliminate chemical fertilizers, and allow for different chemical regimes where needed. Then from a consumer's point of view, it has no GI. It doesn't actually have any starch in. It's gluten-free and it's non-GMO. There is a no GMO version of lupin. That's a big point of difference to soy. And of course, in comparison to pea, no starch means it doesn't have any of those starchy flavors. Next slide. So we've really got to the exciting part, really. I think we've gone through a lot of the technology challenges. There are still more, and that's why we've invested in a pilot plant. The board approved that. But really, we're moving to that exciting part where we're talking about providing commercial samples to very large ingredient and food companies, and also really moving towards the commerciality of a feasibility around a commercial plant as well. Next slide. So we understand that we have to optimize our technology. We have to collect data so that we can form a very strong position around the commercial, the CapEx and OpEx around a commercial plant. But also we need samples that we can provide at food grade, not only to external customers, but also to ourselves at Dirty Clean Food. And next slide. And that is really the essence of the strategy. So we really want to start engaging now in much more. We've started very strong initial conversations with ingredient companies. We have a strong list of over now 50 companies that we are engaging with that have shown interest in our technology and the resulting modified lupin protein. But also internally, we are developing products. We've released the lupin protein ball online. We've also got the oat milk with the protein enhancement. So we really see that there's a kind of a two-pronged strategy. One, probably getting the more sort of, less complex products like noodles and oat milk additives. But then the burgers and the more complex food products, we really would like to see and create relationships with the right companies, with the right philosophy and the right commitment to bring this technology all the way through to commercialization. Next slide, which takes us to our oat milk. Really, oat milk is the rising star of plant-based milks. It is the category that is taking more away from traditional dairy than in any other replacement of animal product to plant-based. And next slide, we have launched OAT very successfully. We're really happy with the uptake. We spent a lot of time getting the recipe right, and that's really bearing fruit. It's competitive, there's no doubt. Oatly is the market leader, but really no one knows and no one has yet positioned as 2 and 3, and that's our objective, to be number 2 in Australia and in the Asia Pacific region. We've had a great start, 150 retail outlets in Western Australia alongside cafes as well. That's also now matched with distribution agreements. I'll go to the next slide, thanks. Distribution agreements in South Australia, New South Wales, Victoria, and Queensland. And they're very exciting when you get distributors in that we've got their specialty. They understand the importance of quality, but also they understand the importance to consumers now of the story behind the product. And our oats are the best in the world. Aligned with that is our regenerative growing practices that really align to what consumers that are looking for plant-based drinks and foods are looking for. And that aligns both to our oat products and our lupin protein as well. So the next slide. We are and have always been a for-profit and for-purpose company. Carbon is our key metric. We see both carbon and biodiversity loss as the 2 greatest challenges for us as a society and an economy. So we take that very seriously. We track how much land we are impacting through regenerative farming practices. We look at how much we really eliminate our food waste, and having multiple channels allows us to do that. We want to increase access to plant-rich diets through our oat milk and our range of lupin products. And then there are emissions through our distribution and refrigeration practices. and that's all offset through Climate Active, which is the federal government's body, so very highly regulated. So thanks for listening, and welcome any questions from the panel.
Right, thanks, Ben. Certainly a business that seems to be in the right place at the right time, and sometimes it is all about timing. Just some questions here. Will Oat Hub and the Dirty Clean range be sold through Coles or Woolies?
We certainly are talking to national distributors, which includes that sort of scale of organisation. Obviously now we sell a lot through the IGA. Their national distributor is Metcash, so we have a relationship with them. But we're quite comfortable with our current sort of specialty distributors. They understand and value the product, but certainly we're open to those conversations and hope that we can progress that.
And you showed some big competitors, big market caps in Europe and the States. Is your focus on Asia?
Yeah, it is. It's the local market. Dirty Clean Food has shown how you get a presence in your local market, then you can really go with strength across to the eastern states. But really it is Southeast Asia. So right now we're honing in on Singapore. We've made initial sales into Singapore. We're talking to distribution companies there. Very positive feedback on the product, which is we expect now because we're seeing it really pull through a number of retail channels. But really we see Singapore, Hong Kong and potentially Taiwan as three exciting markets for us to launch. But yeah, we want to be number 2 across Southeast Asia.
And you talk about lupin as the kind of core ingredient, for want of a better word. Is there a long history of human consumption of lupin?
There is, of different varieties. Certainly in the Mediterranean, you speak to people from Portugal and Spain and Italy, they've been eating lupin like we eat beer nuts, effectively. But in Australia, it's still quite a low uptake, generally because of its mouthfeel. It's got a very gritty mouthfeel. Our technology unlocks the protein and really removes that mouthfeel with a very neutral taste. And that's what really excites us, is that it opens it up to a range of applications. So that's where we really see, the intent of getting it out of what is effectively an animal feedstock into human food consumption.
And going into commercial production, is that a capital intensive process?
It is. Yeah, you look at people both in Australia and the US. The number ranges from 30 right through to $70 million for capex. The pilot plant will reveal a lot more to us around that. We're also investigating technologies that reduce that capex. So you can effectively do it through a wet extraction or a dry extraction. We're talking to some really leading processing companies in Europe about using dry because it reduces your energy, reduces your water and your hazardous chemical use. So that I think will be important. We feel that plant-based protein sector is starting to move to almost sort of version 2.0. Consumers are asking even deeper questions about not only is it plant-based, but how is it grown and how is it produced? So that's really where we see the white space for the lupin protein.
And we've spoken about on these webinars before, there's a strong investment focus from environmental, social and governance issues. Are you attracting interest from those type of investors?
We are. No, we're really proud to have our first impact-focused fund on our registry. And for us as a company that's always worn our for-profit, for-purpose on our sleeve, it's great to get asked the questions around how you're tracking your impact. And we see that as a really common theme, but it relates not only to our corporate entity, but actually to our brand, because consumers are looking all the way up and down now. So, we expect the consumer to understand that Dirty Clean Food is the food brand owned 100% by this company called Wide Open Agriculture that has a mandate for purpose and is tracking carbon, tracking impact on biodiversity loss. So we feel it is a genuinely virtuous circle to be doing what we're doing at a corporate level, and that flows through to our branding. And
just time for one more, Ben. What's the progress on appointing any international distributors both into Europe and the US?
Into Europe and US, I would say early stage, but positive. Certainly Europe, I would say, is more advanced than US, but the CEO of Dirty Clean Food, Jay Arbony, is from the United States and has very strong relationships there from the business he built, Max Delivery, which was an online food delivery business. So early stage, and we are very much focused on Australia and Asian markets, but certainly if those opportunities arise, we're ready for them.
Great, Ben. That's all we have time for. Congratulations. The business has come a long way in the last 12 months.
Thanks, Tim. Cheers, mate.
Right, next up we have Osteopore, ASX code OSX, market cap around $54 million, 1 year return of around minus 29%. The company specialises in the production of 3D printable bioresorbable implants that are used in conjunction with surgical procedures to assist with the natural stages of bone healing. We have with us the Chief Financial Officer, Carl Runn. Carl, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. Yeah, we can move straight on to the disclaimer. As a reminder, I'd just like to remind everybody that some of what I say is future looking and our actual results may differ. And I would encourage everybody to look at our ASX filings for a discussion of the risk factors. So on to what we do. We conduct research, design, develop, manufacture, and distribute unique 3D printed implantable scaffolds that facilitate vascularization to accelerate bone and tissue regeneration. Most of our core product variants are CE marked. We have US FDA 510K and Australian TGA clearance. And to date, our scaffolds have been applied in around 50,000 procedures globally, 20,000 of those over the course of last year. Our biomimetic scaffolds are made from the same material as dissolvable sutures, polycaprolactone, and are naturally and predictably resorbed over time, leaving patients with only their own natural healthy bone. Our core products, so OsteoPlug, OsteoMesh, and OsteoStrip, are primarily indicated for use in over 1.1 million cranial and maxillofacial procedures conducted yearly. And we compete for a share of the annual total available bone graft and permanent implant markets, which are estimated at 3.9 billion and 100 billion US dollars respectively. Traditional bone graft and permanent implant procedures have a high incidence of post-operative complications. Clinical research suggests that complication rates in these two fields are up between 19 and 33% respectively. Bone graft procedures create secondary surgical sites with the usual associated risks and are more prone to causing patient discomfort. And the success of bone graft procedures is not guaranteed, as there's a potential for the body to absorb the graft without generating bone regrowth. As the use of Osteopore's core products don't require any changes to current clinical procedures, they're really easy to micro-adjust in the operating theatre for a better fit, and they result in exceptionally low cost post-operative complication rates. The technology is positively impacting patient outcomes. On the next slide, we'll look at the products in a little bit more detail. So they're all manufactured from a porous, or more manufactured as a porous interconnected microarchitecture that has very similar mechanical properties to human cancellous bone. Once they've been implanted, blood and cells are absorbed into the scaffold pores through capillary action, creating a regenerative environment that is ideally suited to tissue formation. With revascularization, osteoblast activities resume and cells migrate and proliferate to regenerate bony tissue. While that's happening, the body completes its natural healing cycle. The implanted scaffolds are resorbed over a period of 18 to 24 months in the form of water and carbon dioxide, leaving the patient with only natural healthy bone. OsteoPlug is available in a range of sizes and is designed to snap fit perfectly into post-trephination burr holes to provide patients with outstanding functional and aesthetic outcomes. OsteoMesh is our most versatile product with diverse applications in cranio-maxillofacial and aesthetic procedures. The product is easily customizable in the operating theatre using surgical scissors and warm saline solution. OsteoMesh has proved particularly effective in repairing orbital floor fractures, with clinical research suggesting that the use of OsteoMesh showed an improvement in outcomes when compared to permanent implants. OsteoMesh is also used in corrective septoplasty and aesthetic rhinoplasty procedures. OsteoStrip is an integrating implant to restore surgically created bone defects in craniotomy. The implant is used to fix the bone flap after surgical intervention and assists healing by bridging the gap between the bone flap and the host bone. Osteopore also collaborates with a number of surgeons around the world to produce patient-specific implants, what we call PSIs, to repair bone removed because of disease or accident. Most commonly, PSIs are developed to replace larger cranial areas or sections of tibia. And recently, a few of the Australian procedures featured prominently in national media on Channel 9's A Current Affair. In Singapore, we have scaffolds that now have regulatory approval for dental application and are generating revenue. More work is required in other countries to complete clinical trials as part of the regulatory approval process, but we're very excited about the potential growth this product should contribute once it's available for use in all of the major markets. Our work on orthopedic implants is advancing steadily, and investigative devices are already available for use in approved clinical procedures. Now, alongside dental and orthopedic applications, we also conducting exploratory work with alternative standard shapes, including modular inserts for long bone repair and wedges for procedures related to hip and knee adjustment. In addition, we also have observed very encouraging results in the application of our scaffolds in regenerating knee cartilage in animal trials, which takes us to our financial position on the next slide. We generated $1.5 million in revenue last year, growing 41% year on year in constant currency, and had sales of $318,000 in the quarter ending March 2021, growing at 21% in constant currency over the corresponding period in 2019. Osteopore's gross profit of $217,000 for the March quarter represents an increase of 29% compared to the same period last year. The first quarter gross margin of 68.2% was achieved, which is an improvement on both the 56.3% we achieved in the corresponding quarter last year and the 63.2% we achieved over the course of the full 2020 year. Osteopore has a tight capital structure with limited free float. The top 20 shareholders hold over 65% of the issued capital, while the board and management hold around 21% of the shares on issue. Now, at the end of March quarter, the company had a cash balance of around $7.9 million, and over the course of the last 4 quarters, an average quarterly operating cash burn of $468,000. This is significant in that it positions us well to focus on and invest in driving revenue growth over the next few years. Onto the expanding distribution network. Our challenge over the past 18 months has very much been in the circumstances that have prevented us from taking advantage of opportunities to provide the necessary training and support for both distributors and surgeons. Despite the challenges presented by COVID-19 restrictions in most countries, we managed to expand the distribution network from 10 to 23 partners. And we expect that as the COVID-19 vaccination programs roll out globally, our access to these critical partners will improve and that sales will grow. So to date, Osteopore has built its success on expansion within Asia. The cornerstone markets include South Korea, Singapore, Vietnam, and most recently in Australia. Outside of these cornerstone markets, Osteopore has prioritized geographic expansion into 4 regions and has already progressed to varying degrees in 3 of these. The priority markets are those with the highest number of relevant procedures. Last year, we signed distributor agreements for the USA, Germany, Austria, the Scandinavian countries, and the Middle East, and have already filled stocking orders in these cases. We are currently engaging with interested surgeons in the UK who are evaluating our products, and that looks very promising too. We're particularly excited by the opportunity for growth in Europe following the expansion in MDD product certifications that almost doubled access to osteo products for on-indication cranial procedures annually. Based on market research conducted by Cetus Healthcare, we estimate that the serviceable available market value for the incremental access afforded by these extensions exceeds $115 million. Germany and the UK account for just over 40% of the European market, which is expected to grow to 255,000 procedures per year by 2025. Now, Osteopore has also begun to make inroads into China. We've initiated the establishment of a subsidiary in the Suzhou Industrial Park as a prerequisite to obtaining regulatory clearance for our products. Now, China is a very time-consuming process, and we don't expect approvals within the next 2 or 3 years. But given the significance of the Chinese market, with an estimate of more than 200,000 cranial surgeries per year, we recognize the importance of working towards these necessary approvals as a key driver of future growth. We've also initiated the search for potential distributors in Japan, with strong ties to the hospitals and surgeons specializing in craniofacial procedures. And as soon as a suitable partner has been identified and engaged, we'll begin the regulatory clearance process alongside preparatory education and training. Japan is really particularly interesting for us, in that it accounts for over 120,000 relevant procedures per year. On to the penultimate slide. So in summary, Osteopore's strategy rests on 3 complementary paths to drive growth and add value this year and beyond. Our priority is to accelerate revenue growth based on existing products in core and key expansion markets. Second, we're actively exploring and validating new clinical applications for our technology, with the initial focus on obtaining regulatory clearance for dental and orthopedic applications in Australia, the USA, and Europe. Third, we are very committed to innovating products, production methods, and organizational processes to continuously improve patient outcomes, simplify surgical tasks, and reduce overall healthcare costs. So that takes us through to the last slide, where, yeah, thank you. That's sort of an overview of where we are and what we've done.
Thank you, Carl. Quite a few questions here. Can you talk us through a practical example of someone who needs a cranial procedure, they need your implant? Is the implant already there? Where does this get manufactured? Where does it get printed, rather?
So that would we would class that as a patient-specific implant, and there was a public case that here a young man had a severe motorcycle accident in Vietnam with severe head trauma. He lost a part of his skull as a result of that. So what we did is, using CAD technology, we remodeled the missing piece of bone, so that, to create the symmetry that he needed. And that then is printed, that's patient specific, based on the CAD diagrams, printed up and fitted to his skull, and off he goes. And the good news is that he's doing incredibly well. I believe that he, despite the severe nature of his injuries, he's even gone back to resume his studies. Similarly, we would do something like that in, when replacing long bones, is also a patient-specific implant. We would create from the CAD diagrams a replica bone that, once it's removed, the polycaprolactone scaffold is then inserted.
So is the revenue growth, this question here, is the revenue growth driven by selling your own bone scaffolding material, or obtaining royalty rights from others manufacturing and distributing your design materials?
Good question. We produce all of our own scaffolds. So we have the technology and capability to produce these scaffolds, whether as a standard product, as volume. So for example, as I mentioned, the OsteoPlug, OsteoMesh, and OsteoStrip, those are all off-the-shelf products that surgeons can use, and that's sort of mass created. And then if a surgeon has a has an application which requires a patient-specific implant, what we will do is work together. They'll send us the X-rays and so on. We'll start to create the CAD drawings for that, and then produce in conjunction with the surgeon and the surgical team, start to produce the patient-specific implant.
So does that mean the technology, the printer, if you like, is that actually positioned in the country where the operation is taking place?
No, not at all. All of our work is done at the moment in Singapore. So all of the printing, irrespective of the nature of the device, is printed in Singapore, sterilized, and then sent to whichever country. For example, here in Australia, the work that we've done at the Princess Alexandra Hospital in Brisbane, for example, it's sent there and the surgeons use it. But that said, as volume increases, the technology is such that we could theoretically produce anywhere in the world and have the device sterilized, so long as it's within a validated process.
Great, Carl. That's all we have time for. Really interesting technology here. Congratulations. Love to get you back on later in the year.
Thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you. Next up, we have HeraMed, ASX market cap of around $48 million, a one-year return of up 231%. The company technology startup developing a line of innovative connected pregnancy monitoring solutions for home use. We have with us the CEO and founder, David Groberman. David's coming to us from Israel. It's very early in the morning. David, thank you for your time.
Thank you, team. Really exciting to participate for the first time. And yeah, where it's very early here in Israel and the sun is just starting to shine. Before we start, a quick background about myself. I'm a medical engineer by training. And before becoming one of the founders and CEO of HeraMed, I have spent over 15 years developing multidisciplinary medical technologies for some of the leading companies in the world, companies like Philips, GE, Bayer, Medtronic, and others. So let's jump into that with a snapshot of the company of HeraMed. We are an innovative medical data and technology company providing home monitoring and telehealth solutions specifically designed for pregnancy. Our main goal is to achieve the triple aim of 1, improving patient and doctor satisfaction, 2, deliver better care and better clinical outcomes, and 3, provide a cost-effective solution that is accessible to practically each and every expecting mother. At the core of our solution, we have the HeraBeat device, our proprietary medical device. It's a smart connected pregnancy monitor optimized for home use, the first of its kind in the world. Now, it's already clinically and scientifically validated and has regulatory approvals across the world. TGA in Australia, Medical CE in Europe by BSI, and FDA 510K in the US. Our HeraCare platform is a full-blown digital maternity management solution, connecting the HeraBeat as well as additional smart medical devices and linking the expecting mothers with their care providers. Our business model involves a one-off hardware fee of approximately $200 for the devices and the hardware, followed by a SaaS, a software as a service, of approximately $50 per user per month recurring fee. Our company is currently at the commercial tipping point stage. We just recently announced 2 strategic paid pilots, one in Australia with Joondalup Health Campus, part of Ramsay, and one in the US with a Mednex group. These are just the first agreements under our business to consumer direction, and we expect more in the near future. Moving to the next slide, please. Let me share a bit of a background about our industry. So while we saw other areas in health rapidly growing and adapting telehealth and remote monitoring solutions, pregnancy, which is a massive market with a strong potential, was, to be honest, dragging behind. Now, this is mainly due to the lack of technologies to enable a reliable solution to track and monitor the key vitals that are crucial for a genuine medical assessment of the health of the pregnancy and the baby. Now, on top of that, currently, the basic standard care is still very much visit-centric, periodic, and passive, putting the doctor in the center. While what we offer is what the market really wants and needs, a solution that is home and patient-centric, putting the mother in the center, and provides continuous data to deliver personalized and proactive care. Now, the global medical standards recommend about 14 in-person clinic visits, which creates a significant challenge for both doctors and pregnant women. And this is just for normal low-risk pregnancies, while in high-risk pregnancies, which today stands to about 15 to 20% of the pregnancies, it's much, much higher than that and can be as much as 30, even 40 visits per pregnancy. So it recently became a consensus across all stakeholders that COVID forced the industry to move to a remote and telehealth solutions. And now that everybody got comfortable with using telehealth technologies and withstand all the benefits and how effective it is, there's no going back, which obviously creates a significant tailwind to our business model and unique offering. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. I'll spend a moment now to explain the combined end-to-end platform. The HeraBeat is our proprietary multi-sensor device. It's a smart and sophisticated handheld device that enables the untrained expecting mother to monitor their baby's heart rates and well-being and share the data in real time with their doctors. Now, the HeraCare is a comprehensive digital pregnancy management platform connecting additional smart medical devices and linking the expecting mothers with their care providers, enabling a personalized experience and remotely medically supervised pregnancy management. Now, this at-home pregnancy care solution represents a business to consumer model and enabling for the first time clinics, hospitals, insurance companies, and digital health platforms to provide a new telehealth remote monitoring solution for pregnancies. Now, on the next slide, I want to drill even further to the HeraCare software as a service platform. On the left, we can see how it is seamlessly connecting the home users with their care managers and doctors. On the left side, you can find the patient-facing mobile application that connects wirelessly to a variety of smart medical devices and other screening tools. The app is designed to collect all the critical information that doctors really need to ensure a healthy pregnancy. Now, on the other hand of the HeraCare platform, we have the care manager dashboard, where midwives and doctors can view and manage their entire panel of patients from a single location. It enables for the first time a virtual prenatal care in a clinically safe and encrypted environment, ensuring providers are well informed and can optimize their workflow, reducing most of the visits to the clinics, saving time and saving money. Next slide, please. Now, if we switch to the strategy and business model, we have a very well-defined commercialization strategy. And as I mentioned earlier, we have recently demonstrated improving momentum in the validation and execution of this strategy. We have 4 basic steps to success. First, we focus on establishing the very necessary clinical credibility of the technology. Now, this stage is already done and completed with the medical partnerships that we have around the world. Second, we progress to a stage of paid pilots with leading healthcare providers. This stage is focused on making sure that the technology is integrated and aligned with the hospital or the provider's internal workflows and standard of care. Both Joondalup Health Campus and Mednex are currently at this stage, and I'm sure that it will soon evolve into a full-scale commercial rollout, and there will be much more in the near future. Now, third step is then to scale and enable a broad adoption of potentially the entire audience of expecting mothers of each one of these accounts and partners. Practically, this is the stage that is already in play. And fourth, we plan to execute a land and expand strategy across our main target markets, including Australia, US, Israel, and Europe, providing pathways to tens of thousands of births per year, and then growing to hundreds of thousands. Next, please. I would like to quickly share one of our most impressive milestones that we have recently achieved. Last year, we announced the results of an independent comprehensive clinical trial that was undertaken at the Joondalup Health Campus in WA, part of the Ramsay Group. During the trial, the Herabic device demonstrated hospital-grade accuracy for monitoring fetal and maternal heart rates, as well as excellent usability scores and user satisfaction for both use by the clinicians and the pregnant women. Following the completion of the clinical trial, we were then honored to have the trial peer-reviewed and published on the Green Journal, which is ACOG, the American Congress of Gynecologists Obstetricians, formal medical journal. I encourage all of you to review the publication, as the facts and conclusions really are overwhelming. On the next slide, as I've mentioned, we have recently announced 2 paid pilots with significant and strategic clients. The first was with Joondalup Health Campus and includes a paid pilot of the comprehensive hair care solution. And this is just the initial phase of what we believe and anticipate to soon become a full commercial rollout. Now, Joondalup, as you probably know, is part of Australia's largest private hospital operator, Ramsay Health Group. Joondalup is responsible for over 3,000 births annually, while Ramsay overall is responsible for approximately 25,000. Now, the second paid pilot is with the US-based Obstetrics Group, which is an affiliate of Mednex. Mednex is a listed company on the New York Stock Exchange with a market cap of over $2.5 billion. Mednex is the largest provider of women's and children's physician services in the US. And they provide vital care to 1 in 4 babies born in the US. Let me emphasize that this is over 1 million births per year. Just to give you another number, on a global scale, we have approximately about 200 million to 250 million pregnancies annually. Next slide, please. Now, another 2 key partnerships that we have are the Mayo Clinic in the US and Sheba Medical Center in Israel. Mayo Clinic is also an equity partner and invested in the company. Mayo and Sheba together are 2 of the world's top 10 hospitals, and we are extremely proud to be working with both of them. Last slide, please. So to summarize the business model, I want to do a quick calculation and an estimation, please. If we take an average of about $50 US per month per user, and let's use a conservative approach and estimate that our technology will be used for approximately 10 months each year. So we're talking about each license generating approximately $500 US per year on top of the $200 US one-time hardware fee. So let's take a humble, relatively small 1,000 license agreement as an example. 1,000 licenses are therefore generating about $700,000 US per year. And let's take a 5 years contract, which is very common in our industry. We're talking about $3 million contract. Now, 1,000 licenses represent, to our estimation, a relatively small hospital, while larger organizations will most probably need at least 5,000 to 10,000 licenses to be able to provide remote care for their entire audience of pregnant mothers, and even more than that. Now, our strategy is to focus on commercial efforts on early adopters of telehealth in pregnancy, focused on demonstrating the unique advantages of offering a remote home-based maternity care model. We have multiple ways of generating revenue within each relationship, which offers us the flexibility to structure opportunities for each account and engagement. And we have several different potential clients and channel partners, from hospitals to clinics, to maternity health groups, to digital health platforms and insurers. Last slide to summarize. I want to highlight where we stand today and why I'm very confident that Heramed is on the path to becoming a market leader in enabling the adoption of telehealth in pregnancy. We have the only clinically validated maternity care platform We have demonstrated its accuracy and satisfaction of both doctors and pregnant mothers, and we have the necessary regulatory approvals. The backdrop of COVID presented an opportunity to fast-track telehealth adoption and created strong tailwinds across all stakeholders. We have paid pilots with 2 different global maternity care providers, validating our commercial model and our B2B2C approach, and we have several other potential partnerships in the pipeline. And lastly, we have a strong and experienced management team and board, including our chairman, Dr. Ron Weinberger, and we are well placed to capitalize on these significant opportunities. Thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation to present and everybody's time and attention.
Thanks, David. My internet's a bit unstable. I might just turn off my camera and I'll ask the questions from there if you don't mind.
Good.
Now, David, this is a massive opportunity, obviously a massive market, and some great technology. Can you talk us, we've got questions around competitors and your IP and what's to stop potential competitors copying your device?
Thank you for that. Well, look, first of all, I always say that things can always be copied. You know, if someone is saying otherwise, they're simply not being very honest. I do believe that our device, as well as our platform, is quite a rare combination of multidisciplinary elements. It is a combination of unique acoustics and ultrasound technology, optical elements, electronics, hardware, encrypted software, and proprietary algorithms. We have very strong IP already in process. Some have already been accepted in the US, Israel, and Europe. And the entire technology is a result of over 7 years of hard work of multiple experts and includes a diversity of science and medical knowledge and know-how. Now, one more point that I believe is not less, maybe even more important, it's not just that the best tech wins. In many cases, it's the DNA of the company, the people, and most importantly, the network of partners that we build. We are working really with the top medical experts and institutions, with the leading organizations such as Mednex, Ramsey, Mayo, Sheba, and others across the world. Being able to cooperate with partners with such a prominent world leaders will be very difficult and practically impossible to copy.
And David, are there other clients here, like the doctor, the obstetrician, the midwife, they receive the data? Do they pay at their end as well?
No, so the numbers that I mentioned, the $50 per month per user and the $200 for the hardware is paid by the organization, by the hospital. Doctors and midwives are providing the medical services. In many cases, that depends on our clients, different insurance and reimbursement models, which are different from the US to Europe to Australia. But usually some of the fees are covered by the insurance companies or being subsidized by the hospital. Many of our clients also charge an additional premium for giving their medical analysis, supervision, and services. But the fees that I mentioned are directly a B2B contract between ourselves and the hospitals or the healthcare providers.
And you mentioned insurers. What do they think of the product? Can they be involved from a payment perspective?
So the insurance is definitely our next frontier now that we've proven clinical efficiency, and we're working very closely with the healthcare providers. Some of them, as I mentioned, are leaders in the industry. The idea is to approach together to insurance companies and actually prove that we can provide better outcomes, which obviously translates to less cost in the future. And also from a very practical manner, if you look at the number of visits to the clinic or to the hospital, if we can change at least some of that, in some cases, even most of them, with virtual visits, which are much more cost effective, then you prove these numbers to the insurance companies, and with a carefully designed process, you are able to bring them to the game and be able to receive reimbursement and subsidies of the technology.
And just one more on competition, Biorhythm and Novo that have been mentioned, are they competitors?
Well, they're definitely competitors. Both companies that you mentioned, we are very much aware of them. Obviously, Nuvo is another Israeli company. Both of them are using a technology which is very different called fetal ECG. So they work on acquiring the electrical signals of the heart of the baby. And for that reason, they can only be operated during labor or in very, very late stages of the pregnancy, starting from roughly week 35, 36. So it gives them about a month to cover the pregnancy, while our technology is an optimized technology and bringing the cutting edge and latest electronics and algorithms to a technology which has been there for about 50 years. It's ultrasound Doppler. So first of all, our clients, our partners, the doctors really trust and believe in the technology. They're not after new gadgets or new technologies. And on top of that, we are able to produce a very reliable signal, even as early as week 12. And what we found out is that both expecting moms as well as doctors want to be engaged and feel reassured and supported as early as possible in the pregnancy.
Right, David, that's all we have time for. Really interesting presentation. You're well positioned in a massive market. Good luck out there. We'd love to get you back on towards the end of the year.
Thank you very much. And I'm fully vaccinated and really, really hopefully looking to a bright future in which I can travel and visit your beautiful country and meet all of you in person.
It'd be great to meet you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
That's all we have time for this week. Always good to have a great audience. We hear from really interesting companies. Thanks for your time. See you next week.